Hi. Not so long ago, I did a short video note about my idea about seasonal rituals for Satanism, and seeing how they fit in with things. So I just wanted to pick up on that and maybe ramble on a little bit longer about this. And the first thing I wanted to come back to was the sense that the summer solstice, as the time of the rebirth of the dark, could be seen as linked to the idea of the birth of the Antichrist. Now, for me, the Antichrist is a figure of great hope, because it is a figure of the satanic and the demonic that manifests completely and healthily in this life and with complete success. So it's a great talisman of well-being and fullness in life for us as Satanists. That's what I think, anyway. So I have that sense of the Antichrist as being this tremendous symbol, apart from anything else, for us. Now, I think it's interesting, if you're going to look at things like the birth of things, that you look back to the time of conception as well, which for human beings is 9 months previously. Now, if something is born at the summer solstice, then that would mean it's conceived at the previous autumn equinox. So this is also an interesting theme for maybe the autumn equinox, that it is the time of conception of the Antichrist, which of course is a lovely symbol. It's kind of like the begetting of a moon child or what have you, that will bring our Lord through, or the Antichrist through. So that's all really rather lovely. Now, another thing that I have is that the August time, the harvest time, the celebration which in some forms of paganism is referred to as Lammas or Lunasa. Now, this time I associate very much with a very full manifestation of our Lord, the Sabbath God, the horn god, the devil, Satan. So this also is a wonderful time as far as I'm concerned, and I find it a very sensuous time, a very sexual time in many ways. Now, if you say that, for instance, in this case, there's this visitation from the horn god and from our Lord in this time in August, in harvest time, and this then becomes a time of conception as well, then 9 months on from Lammas, then that would manifest at, Purchase night. So that again is rather lovely, so we've got two cycles there of impregnation and birth, which you can take however you like, but they're both rather lovely, I think, and that gives four times, yeah. Now, apart from that, obviously we've got Halloween, which is a very big one. Spring equinox, well, that doesn't do very much for me, I have to admit. But if you can find something to put there, that's great, Winter solstice, the Capricorn solstice in the northern hemisphere. That to me is a time of our coming through the time of greatest darkness, which is a time both to celebrate and also to strengthen ourselves to go through, you know. So the winter solstice is, as is traditional, a time of feasting and of gathering around the fires and of merrymaking, and this is all very good for the middle of winter. It's a very good thing. There's also something here about the arising of light in the sense of our own consciousness, and so this is something which we can celebrate ourselves as well. But the main thing is the development of strength and joy and our continued will to carry on through the winter. Now, the only other real association I have is with the time of February, with about the time of Lupercalia, which is sort of like mid-February. I do feel something for this. Again, there's the theme of the horn god there, and there is the theme of wolves and of fecundity, and this is something also that I think could quite easily be woven into Satanic practice, so Lupercalia I rather like. What I'm finding myself is that I find a place in my own practice for Walpurgis night, summer solstice, Lammas, autumn equinox, Halloween, winter solstice, and Lupercalia. And that's basically how I'm seeing it with myself at the moment. Of course, everything is continuously being explored, and you're always trying to find the ways to put things together, or what might come through to you, and that goes on. I'm very interested in the sense of an interpenetration of the natural and the infernal, and of the Satanic and the pagan. As I've said a number of times, I consider Satanism to be a form of paganism, just a very special, particular form of paganism, with a particular alliance with the underworld gods, and with the Horned Lord of witchcraft. That's how I largely see it. I think it's also, incidentally, I think the figure of Hecate is a very important one, of course. I think she's very important in paganism, she's very important in witchcraft, and I see her as being a good sort of like interresonance also between the areas of paganism and Satanism, because I see a place for her there also, because she spans worlds, so there is also that as well. Anyway, I hope that is interesting for you, and I hope it may encourage you to explore your own celebrations and to get creative with these things. Thank you very much. Hello, this is just a little postscript to my video. As I've said before, there's a link between our religion and the realm of the dead, in as much as the infernal literally means the underworld. So we have a strong link with the dead, with the realm of the dead, amongst other things. and in that sense we are really quite similar to some voodoo practices, I feel. We are in some ways a spiritist religion. Now, in this respect, I think this comes into the festival of Halloween, for Halloween is a time traditionally when we have contact with the ancestors, contact with the spirit world, contact with our own ancestors, but also contact with, we could say, ancestors more broadly. So why it's perfectly correct, I feel, for us to have contact with our loved ones who have crossed over, and with this sort of thing, that's very important. But also we could, at this time, remember our ancestors religiously and magically in terms of witchcraft and devil worship and magic. And so these things can all play into the festival of Halloween, and I think that's a very good thing to do. Another thing I wanted to mention was that there are a number of pagan myths which can be very resonant for us. And one myth which I find very resonant is the myth of Hades and Persephone. Now, you probably know this myth, but in the myth, Persephone is abducted from the upper world by Hades and taken down to the underworld to be her queen. In the process, she does indeed become his queen, and she eventually, through the agency of other deities, including her mother, gains a place, in a sense, between the worlds. She gains a place both back in the upper world for 6 months of the year and down in the underworld with Hades. It's a complex myth in many ways. It's one which has very many resonances psychologically, and I've always felt that Persephone is an ambivalent figure here. Rather than being simply abducted, she is, in a sense, I think, also invited in some sense, and so there's always this ambiguity there, and this question as to what actually happened to Persephone. And it's very reminiscent of some of our own experiences in life, where our deeper wishes seem to emerge from the subconscious and carry us off into things which will lead to our greater development. For Persephone gains sovereignty at the end of the day, and she gains this place with her lord in the underworld. So I think it's a very resonant myth. It has all sorts of things there which can be explored, and there are really a number of different myths. I'm sure there are many myths in paganism and in pagan mythology which may speak to us as Satanists and as devil worshippers, and I think it's good for us to explore these and embrace these and follow our intuition and our instincts on these things, and weave them into our practices too, where we feel guided to. Thank you very much.